Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be exploring Ayşegül Savas's The Anthropologists.
Okay.
This is a novel that has captured the hearts and minds of readers everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It even landed on the New Yorker's Best Books of the Year list.
Wow.
So we're going to be diving into the book itself, and we're also going to be drawing on some reviews and analyses to help us unpack why this story resonates so deeply with people.
Yeah, what really intrigues me is how Savas takes this seemingly simple premise, a couple searching for an apartment.
Right.
And she weaves it into this really profound exploration of home and belonging and like those small, often overlooked moments that make up a life,
It's true.
Yeah.
I think everyone can relate to that feeling of in-betweenness.
Right.
That Ayşe and Manu, our main characters, experience.
Yeah.
They're navigating a new city, trying to find their place, while also feeling this growing distance from their homelands.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Asya's background as an anthropologist adds this really fascinating layer to their journey. It's as though they're constantly observing their own lives, turning like everyday experiences into a study of human behavior.
It makes me think about the apartment hunting process itself.
Yes.
It's never just about finding a place to live, is it?
No, it's not.
Each apartment they view becomes this window into their past, their present and future desires.
Precisely.
Right.
It's about envisioning a life within those walls. Where will we cook, eat, laugh, argue, simply be?
Right.
And Savas brilliantly uses these seemingly mundane apartment viewings as a framing device for much larger questions about identity and connection.
Speaking of connection.
Yes.
I was struck by how Savas portrays their relationship. It's not a fairy tale romance.
No.
But a real lived-in partnership with its share of compromises and unspoken tensions.
Yeah.
Did you find that aspect of the book resonated with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to see such an honest and relatable portrayal of a long-term couple. It reminds us that love isn't always grand gestures and sweeping declarations.
Right.
But often found in the quiet moments of shared routines and an unspoken understanding.
Yes, and Savas manages to capture the humor in those moments, too.
It does.
Which makes them all the more authentic.
Yeah.
I loved how even something as simple as cooking together becomes this ritual that brings Ayşe and Manu closer.
It speaks to the power of ritual and routine, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Those seemingly small acts create a sense of stability and belonging.
Right.
Especially when everything else feels uncertain.
It makes you wonder, what are the rituals and routines in your life that bring you a sense of peace and connection?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it's your morning coffee ritual or a weekly phone call with a loved one. Those little things that make up the fabric of your personal culture.
I love that you bring up the idea of personal culture.
Yeah.
It's as though each of us is carrying out our own anthropological study on our own lives, whether we realize it or not.
And speaking of unexpected connections,
yes,
let's talk about Teresa, their elderly neighbor.
Okay.
She becomes such a pivotal character in their lives, almost like a chosen family member.
What's fascinating about Teresa is how she represents a link to the past, offering a different perspective on life's journey. Asya and Manu are so caught up in the present, figuring out their lives.
Right.
And Teresa's stories and presence ground them in a way.
It's like she embodies that sense of continuity and history that they're craving.
Yes.
And her apartment's so different from the modern spaces Asya and Manu are considering.
Yeah.
Becomes a place of refuge and comfort.
Yes, it highlights how home doesn't necessarily have to be a place that reflects our current aspirations or aesthetics.
Right.
It can be a space that simply offers a sense of belonging and connection, no matter how humble or unconventional.
You know, one thing that kept popping up in the reviews was praise for Savas's unique writing style.
Oh, yeah.
It's been described as minimalist and fragmented.
Interesting.
Which might sound challenging. But reviewers found it incredibly beautiful and immersive.
Her prose is truly captivating.
Yeah?
Even though it's spare, she packs so much meaning into her words. She makes you pay attention to the details you might otherwise miss.
Right.
It's like she's inviting the reader to become an anthropologist alongside Asya, noticing those subtle nuances of behavior and environment.
And I think that's what makes The Anthropologist so special.
Yeah.
It's not just a story, it's an experience. It makes you think about your own life, your own relationships, and your own definition of home in a whole new light.
Before we move on, I want to highlight one more thing.
Okay.
Savas's inclusion of Asya's documentary project, where she films ordinary people in a park, attempting to capture the essence of their lives, is so meta.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like a commentary on the book itself.
Exactly.
Savas, through Asya, is showing us that Everyone's life is worthy of examination. That there's beauty and meaning to be found even in the most commonplace activities.
And it leads to such a thought-provoking question for the listener.
Yes.
If you were to document your life as an anthropologist, what moments, rituals, or relationships would you choose to highlight?
Okay.
What would you want future generations to understand about your experience of the world?
It really is a powerful question.
Yeah.
And it really ties back to the heart of what the Anthropologists is all about.
It really does. It makes you realize that we're all participants in this grand human experiment, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Each of us contributing our own unique story to the tapestry of human experience.
Beautifully put. And that leads me to something I found particularly striking in the critical reception of the novel.
Yeah.
The way Savas's writing style is described, minimalist, fragmented, yet utterly captivating.
It's interesting, isn't it? You wouldn't necessarily think those words would go together.
Right.
Minimalist and captivating.
Right.
But reviewers consistently use terms like enchanting, mesmerizing, even page-turner to describe the experience of reading this book. Exactly, and I think it comes down to the precision and elegance of Savas's language. It's not about flowery descriptions or overly dramatic prose.
Right.
She chooses her words carefully, creating these vivid, almost poetic images in the reader's mind with just a few well-placed phrases.
It's like she trusts the reader to fill in the gaps,
Yeah.
to bring their own experiences and interpretations to the story.
Yes.
And that creates a much more intimate and engaging reading experience, don't you think?
I agree. It's almost like you're eavesdropping on these characters' lives, experiencing their world through their senses.
Yeah.
You mentioned the humor earlier.
Yeah.
I think that plays a role too.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but incredibly effective in making Asya and Manu feel like real, flawed, relatable people.
Absolutely. It prevents the story from becoming too heavy or philosophical.
Right.
There's a lightness and warmth to their interactions, even when they're disagreeing or navigating difficult emotions.
And that brings us back to their relationship, which critics have praised for its honesty and realism.
Yes.
Savas doesn't shy away from depicting the complexities of a long-term partnership.
It's so refreshing, right?
It is.
It's not about presenting some idealized version of love, but rather exploring the compromises, the unspoken tensions, the quiet acts of service that make up a real lived-in relationship.
And it's through those small details.
Yes.
The way Asya makes Manu's favorite tea when he's stressed.
Right.
The way they instinctively reach for each other's hand in a crowded room. That we truly understand the depth of their connection.
Those are the moments that stay with you long after you finish reading.
They do.
And they remind you that even amidst the chaos of daily life, those small gestures of love and support can make all the difference.
Speaking of chaos and support, let's revisit the theme of displacement that runs throughout the novel.
Okay.
Asya and Manu are both living far from their home countries, navigating this constant feeling of being in between.
It's a feeling so many people can relate to, especially in today's increasingly globalized world.
Yeah.
That sense of searching for a place to truly belong, a place where you feel seen and understood.
And Ayşegül's background as an anthropologist adds another layer to this theme.
Right.
She's constantly observing, analyzing, trying to make sense of this new environment.
Yeah.
Almost as if she's conducting fieldwork on her own life.
That's what I love about Savas's approach. She doesn't offer easy answers or solutions.
Right.
She invites the reader to participate in the exploration, to ask their own questions about what it means to belong, to create a sense of home in a world that often feels fragmented and uncertain.
Exactly. And sometimes the answers we find aren't what we expect.
Right.
They might come from an unlikely source, like an eccentric elderly neighbor who offers a different perspective on life and connection.
Right. Let's talk more about Teresa. She becomes such a pivotal character in Asya and Manu's lives.
She embodies that sense of chosen family, the idea that we can create our own support systems and find belonging outside traditional structures.
Right.
And the contrast between her apartment cluttered, filled with memories, and the sleek modern spaces Asya and Manu are considering is so symbolic.
It highlights that home isn't about aesthetics or keeping up with trends.
Right.
It's about creating a space that reflects who you are. A space that holds your stories and nurtures your soul.
And Teresa's stories are what truly ground Asya and Manu, providing that connection to the past they seem to be craving. She reminds them that life is a journey.
Right.
And sometimes the most meaningful moments happen when we slow down and listen to the wisdom of those who've come before us.
It's so true in a world that often feels obsessed with the new and the next. Teresa embodies that quiet strength and wisdom that comes from living a life fully and embracing all its complexities.
And speaking of embracing complexity, I'd love to delve a bit deeper into the role of ritual and routine in the novel.
Okay.
Savas highlights how those seemingly mundane activities,
Yeah.
cooking together, sharing meals, even just watching detective shows together,
Right.
create a sense of normalcy and connection for Asya and Manu.
It's fascinating, isn't it? We often think of rituals as something formal or religious.
Yeah.
But the anthropologist reminds us that they can be found in the simplest, most everyday acts. It's those little things that anchor us,
Yes.
that give us a sense of belonging and purpose.
And I think that resonates so deeply with readers because we all have our own rituals and routines that provide comfort and meaning in our lives. Maybe it's your morning coffee ritual, a weekly phone call with a loved one, or even just the way you organize your desk before starting work.
Those small acts become touchstones in our day-to-day existence, reminding us who we are and what matters most.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it, and it ties back to that initial question about documenting our lives as anthropologists.
Yeah.
If we were to step back and observe our own lives with that same level of curiosity and attention,
Right.
what would we discover? What would stand out as the defining rituals and relationships that shape our personal cultures?
It's a question worth pondering, isn't it? And one that the anthropologists invites us to explore further before we dive into the cultural and philosophical aspects of the novel.
Okay.
I want to emphasize one more element that struck me.
Okay.
The way Savas uses Ayşe's documentary project as a meta-commentary on the book itself.
You're right. Asya is filming ordinary people in a park trying to capture the essence of their everyday lives.
Right.
Just as Savas is doing in The Anthropologists.
It's like she's reminding us that every life holds a story worth telling, and that beauty can be found in the most unexpected places, even in the seemingly mundane moments that make up a day.
And it subtly challenges the reader to become their own anthropologist.
Yes.
To look at their own lives, their own relationships, and their own experiences with the renewed sense of curiosity and appreciation.
It's such a powerful message.
It is.
And one that lingers long after you finish the last page. It really is a powerful message as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into the anthropologists.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how Savas weaves in those cultural and philosophical threads
Right.
throughout the story.
Yeah, it's so subtly done, isn't it? You never feel like you're being lectured or bombarded with theory. Instead, it's integrated organically into the characters' lives and interactions.
Exactly like with Asi's Turkish heritage and Manu's Indian background. They're not explicitly discussed at length,
Yeah.
but they're always present in the background,
Yeah.
informing their worldview and shaping their experiences.
It's in the food they cook, the stories they share, even the way they approach certain situations. It adds a layer of richness and complexity to their journey as individuals and as a couple navigating a new culture.
And it reminds us that even when we're striving to build a new life,
Yeah.
our cultural identities are always with us, influencing how we see the world and how we connect with others.
Absolutely. I also appreciate how Savas contrasts Asya's more observational artistic approach to life with Manu's academic philosophical leanings.
Right.
He's always pondering those big questions about existence and meaning, while Asya is more focused on capturing the beauty and truth of everyday moments.
It's almost like they represent two different ways of being an anthropologist, right?
Yeah.
Manu is searching for answers in books and theories, while Asya is finding them through direct experience and human connection.
Yes, and I think Savas is subtly suggesting that both approaches are valuable. We need both the head and the heart, the intellectual and the emotional, to truly understand ourselves and the world around us.
It makes me think about how we define home as well.
Yeah.
Is it a physical place, a set of shared values, or something more intangible, like a feeling of belonging and acceptance?
Right. The anthropologist doesn't offer a single definitive answer.
Right.
But I think what resonates most with readers is the idea that home isn't necessarily a fixed location, but rather a state of being. It's about finding those connections that nourish your soul, whether they're with people, places, or even ideas.
And it's something that Ajay and Manu ultimately discover through their experiences in the novel, isn't it?
It is.
That home can be created anywhere as long as you have those relationships that make you feel seen, understood, and loved.
Absolutely. And that sense of belonging can come from unexpected places.
Yeah.
Like a shared meal with an eccentric neighbor,
Yeah.
a comforting ritual, or even just the simple act of observing the world around you with curiosity and compassion.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what would you say are the key takeaways for our listener?
Okay.
What can they glean from the anthropologists and apply to their own lives?
Well, I think it encourages us to pay attention to the details of our own lives,
Okay.
to appreciate the beauty and meaning in those seemingly mundane moments, to recognize the rituals and routines that bring us comfort and connection.
It's also a reminder that it's okay to feel in between at times.
Yes.
To not have all the answers.
Yeah.
Life is a journey. And sometimes the most rewarding discoveries happen when we embrace the unknown and allow ourselves to be surprised by the people and experiences that come our way.
And finally, I think the Anthropologists challenges us to be our own anthropologists, to observe our own lives with curiosity and compassion, to ask questions about what matters to us, what shapes our identities, and what creates a sense of belonging in a world that can often feel fragmented and uncertain.
Beautifully said. The Anthropologist is a novel that stays with you long after you finish reading.
It does.
It's a story about home belonging and the power of human connection, but it's also an invitation to explore our own lives with a fresh perspective and to find those moments of beauty and meaning in the everyday.
And with that, we conclude our deep dive into the Anthropologists.
Thanks for listening to Books Podcast. Enjoyed this episode. Subscribe and share with fellow book lovers. Got a book suggestion? Let us know. Happy reading.